Well, it's day 2 of the 100-day project, and I have another watercolor video. Um, just in terms of what I'm using, it's just like a really basic craft palette that I picked up at Curry's. The watercolor quality from the little pucks are not ideal. It's definitely similar to something that you would have used in like grade school, but it's fun, and I liked the variety of colors that are there. You certainly if you try and really like develop the color to get high pigmentation, you end up with some chalkiness on the page. So there are definitely some limitations, but I really just bought it to kind of have fun and play around with, and not to do any, formal, high quality art pieces. So today it's gloomy outside, and I really just in my head had this picture of a beautiful spring field with some freshly popped flowers, and just something that could kind of brighten up the day. So I've done a little bit of a wash with green for the field portion and blue for the sky, and then I faded into a little bit of purple because I thought that would be nice, and I wanted to use purple flowers as well. So I thought it would be a good mix for the background. This paper that I'm using, it's a hot press paper, and it's very smooth. And the watercolor paper that I'm used to using is quite porous. And what you would typically think of when you think of watercolor paper is kind of that bumpy paper. So I find that the water really sits on top, or the color sits on top of this type of paper, as opposed to really kind of like bleeding into the paper. So I definitely get different markations on the paper than what I'm expecting, but it's still kind of fun to play with this new kind of paper. So I just started off by adding some flowers, and it was when I started doing these yellow flowers that I thought, oh my gosh, this is not going to turn out the way that I wanted to. I think the yellow was just too yellow. They looked too much like stars, and I just thought to myself, this is not going to work. So destroyed that. And as I was doing this destruction, the first thing I thought was, oh my gosh, it's all brown. How am I going to bring this back? And then I looked outside and thought, oh, it just looks like outside. Maybe I shouldn't fight this. So now that I've totally overworked the paper with water, I decided to do something a little bit different. So I mixed up some reds. There's like a really pretty, this red here. It's like a kind of like a fire red. It's got some orange to it. And I added a little bit of this really pretty maroon, burgundy, cranberry-ish color to it for a little bit of depth. And I decided that poppies were the way to go today. So I'm doing wet on wet, and you can see that the first one that I did, the background was a lot wetter in that spot than in the other areas that I'm doing. So it spread the most, and that one ends up being my favorite, really. But all I'm doing is just kind of like blobbing on red in areas in kind of flowery shapes, but I'm kind of not doing too much to the image. I'm just letting the paper kind of do the work and the water do the work. And as I go through and put these flower shapes in, I was thinking about kind of the stem placements, but also not really thinking about it too much, because poppies are kind of have these like long, sinewy stems that, I don't know, you can kind of do whatever you want with them. And then I thought, oh, there's like a lot of blank spots. So I'm just adding in some more stems in areas where I want to put some buds. And poppies have these like really cool kind of like, I don't even know how to describe them. They're like little black flowers, or like brownish flowers on top of these little pods, and these are seed pods. So once the flower's spent, they kind of fall off, which is not very springtime. But I don't think I've ever really seen poppies blooming without some of these kind of like buds or seed pods. I guess they'd be seed pods, not buds. And the next thing that I wanted to do was just kind of like clean up some of the areas and give them that more fluttery look that poppies often have. And then I mixed up some color for in the centers, and the color that I mixed up was like a bluey bluey, purpley, black color because the centers of poppies are very dark, but sometimes you can get like these hints of blue, which I think are really, really pretty. So that's what I've done with the centers. And then I just kind of wanted to fill things in, and this is totally not biologically appropriate in terms of what the poppy leaves look like. Poppy leaves are kind of like these long finger fronds. They're almost like tiny ferns if you want to think of something that they look like. And so these are not, anatomically correct flower leaves, but I thought that it was just something that was simple to add because it was kind of an afterthought. This whole piece is kind of just like a random. I want to paint something. I don't know what it's going to be or how it's going to turn out. And then as you can see, I go in with more color on the top, which leads to trouble. And this is why I almost always plan out what I'm going to do before I do it. And I always have like a bit of an idea. And sometimes I sketch it out on just like this little sketchbook that I have beforehand. And I don't put any color to it. I just kind of like freeform the outlines of what things will look like so that, I don't end up having to do this type of stuff. But this is my day 2, poppies. I hope you like it. And see you on day 3.